Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I thought I would come on here today because it's been a little while since I've been on here and do some question and answers for all the things that you want to have covered. It's been a while since we usually been covering some different topics, but I thought, well, let's go through and spend half an hour or so going through your different questions relating to OCD and getting those covered. I've been pretty busy with the one-to-one sessions and the group sessions and the webinars, and obviously at the moment we've got a COVID situation, as everyone knows, and where I am it's not ideal for COVID, and so there's been a lot going on, and we've been so busy with all the one-to-one calls that take up a lot of time and setting up all our new webinars and completing the other webinars and groups that we do, and so it's been very busy. Obviously, with myself, I work with people in all different countries all over the world. It's hard to think of a country that we don't see someone from with OCD, which is good because when I started this, I always thought it would be a big problem for people who lived in countries where they couldn't get help for OCD. Not only the fact that OCD is very misunderstood, and barely anyone really has a good understanding of it, so it's very hard to find help. But then the main places, America and the UK, they get the help, which obviously isn't great help by any means, but they get a lot better help than countries where, for example, they haven't got much help at all. The likes of India, Pakistan, China, Russia, all these places that don't. So we're doing, and I work with a lot of translators that help me when somebody can't speak to me in English. Then we have translators on the line that help with so that they can get. Obviously, with OCD, you want to be understood because it's quite complicated. All the things that the person's thinking, you're trying to think. They've got to explain all their fears and stuff. You wouldn't be so easy to do that if they can't speak, if they can't understand what's being said. So we've been doing a lot of work with the one-to-one calls, and we're setting up new YouTube pages in different countries for people in China, for people in India and Pakistan. We see so many people come from India and Pakistan that we want to have specific resources for them so that we cover that in great detail, because that's the main thing. For far too long, I mean, look, OCD is pretty diabolical in the dark ages, how it's been for decades. We all know that. Otherwise, every time we would just walk into the average therapist on the street and get the best help. It's obviously not like that because it's very misunderstood. So it's really behind the times. However, if you look at, for example, Philippines, Thailand, and places like that, you're talking with zero resources. You look at major countries like China, it's astounding how badly understood OCD is and how lacking in treatment is. It's very bad. So in those countries, we want to make sure that they have enough resources online, so that they can see what they need to do to get better from OCD. And I think that's very important, because it was one of the first things I thought, Jesus, this journey is so bloody hard to get better from when I was struggling. And then I thought, well, how hard must this be if you were stuck in Thailand or in the Philippines? You don't have any resources, and if you went to the average therapist, the chance of getting better from chronic OCD is near zero. I can't see how it'd be possible at all, because they certainly wouldn't learn anything about unconditional self-life, other acceptance. That wouldn't happen. So they wouldn't have any of those tools, which make it very difficult if you've got false memory, real event, OCD. Any of that is going to be extremely, extremely difficult. So I can't see how they'd have much luck there. They'd be very, very stuck there. Then the most information they'd be given would be things to do with thoughts are thoughts, leave thoughts there. You don't need to, you need to change your relationship with OCD. Now that's if they understood it. There's not to say that that's even the case. It's hugely likely that they go in and the majority of therapists in their countries may only have knowledge of contamination OCD. I mean, even in America and the UK, it's rare for them often to. I mean, it's rare that they'll often know of POCD. I mean, countless people come in all the time saying they went to the doctor, mentioned POCD, didn't understand it, they had to explain it. It's very tricky like that. So those countries, we want to make a lot of change. And due to the internet now, social media is a bit like sort of the books of the future, in the sense that it's obviously easier to reach a lot more people with social media than it was in the past. If I wrote, say for example, if I wrote a book on OCD and I published it today, it would go to a certain number of people, but they'd have to find out about that book and they'd have to believe in that book and they'd have to see it works. With social media, you can obviously paint a much longer journey and much more information, much bigger picture. So because of that ability to do that, it enables you to be able to sort of release one page of the book every hour or whatever, and then give understanding behind what that page was going on about. And so you can paint this much more descriptive, in detail journey, which is very helpful to people who are struggling with OCD, and it means that you can reach a lot more people. When I started out doing this, many years ago, but more so in the last couple of years with social media, it always used to have me surprised. I used to be surprised. People used to message and say, "Oh, I'm on some military base in the middle of the sea somewhere, or I'm in some country that I had never heard of," and thought, "Oh, wow, that's amazing to have someone coming to us from there and being able to help them." And the more that happened, I thought, you see, this is obviously the benefits of social media, being able to reach them. If you publish a book today, the chance that someone in that military base is going to be able to get access to that book. I mean, now with Amazon things are different, but it wouldn't be just like that. So social media has made a massive change to that. So obviously we put a lot of work into building the social media so that it gets seen by more people and by the words that they would look for in the themes that they think of. I mean, we just take a theme like sensory motor OCD, so misunderstood. You can go to a sensory motor OCD specialist and usually they don't focus on the fear element, the fear of being stuck forever with it, and the idea that it would be awful if you were stuck forever, which is the huge catalyst that's driving that whole cycle, that if I'm stuck like this, being internally tortured forever, my life's over. That is the catalyst. And without them having an understanding of that, very difficult for them to get better, because you just can't see it. I mean, the sensory motor, for example, I used to feel like I was being internally tortured when I was sitting in the bath, because you'd want to have a rest in the bath. You associate the bath and the bed for a place of relaxation and sleep. So when you're really anxious, when you really think it's your life ruined, it's sort of coming in like a hammer into your head over and over and over and over and over and over. So, things are like that, because anything in life, when you don't understand rational thinking, can become a problem. Anything can become. It's a painting behind me. I used to have a fear that what if a painting fell on my head when I was asleep? Because you're knocked out when you're asleep. You're not aware of what's going on around you. So if this fell on my head, then I could die. But it was more so not so much me dying from this. It was more so, what if somebody else died from this? What happens if I had, for example, had rented out a flat or something, and somebody was in that bed where that painting had been hung, and then that fell on them? That would be the responsibility element, something that people come in all the time to see me about, especially in the sort of maintenance world with plumbing and building work. People come in all the time and say, what if I installed a boiler and then it fell down and killed someone or something like that, and wanting to go back and check it and so on. That happens all the time. So yeah, painting, for example. What other things? I mean, I was only just talking about in this space here. Anything in just this space here on this Instagram Live, I could point out 20 things that, I'm going off topic a little bit here because I want to go to the question and answers, but I will do it. I could point out 20 things that OCD would pick. Let's have a look. I could pick these glasses. I could pick what happens if this is broken or something, and then is not balanced properly. Now, if someone's got a fear of being looked at weird or seen weird, they might think, well, what happens if everyone sees my glasses like this and then I don't notice, and then they think less of me, or think I'm not organized, and then it affects my job, or then I lose an interview because of it. Someone could think that. Buying glasses, what if they're uncomfortable? What if I notice there's a sensation of them being uncomfortable all day, or every hour, and it ruins my life? I used to actually have one similar to that in relation to shoes, thinking if that shoe is uncomfortable, I'll notice that sensation all the time. I couldn't care about any of that stuff now, but in the time around 15, 16 years old, it very much had me gripped, that one, because I was very locked into that sensation. So there's that one. What other things could there be? Well, in relation to clothes as well. What if a jacket feels too tight or something, and then I think every time I'm sitting down, I feel that sensation of the jacket tight, and I regret buying a jacket that was not the right size, so I must go and get exactly the right size and think exactly what fits. Hair. People can think, oh, what if my hair doesn't look in the way I want it to look, and then people think less of me, or I lose a date, or lose a social status, or being accepted by people because of how my hair is, which could be a case for very much as a common one. Again, one that I used to think of when I was around the age of 16, spending a lot of time with hair wax and hair gel, because OCD had got into that sort of appearance thing. It can do that. What other things can it do in this, just what we're looking at here? It could do eye contact, not making eye contact, being scared to look at someone. Maybe you're scared of upsetting them. Maybe they will think you're weird because you're not making eye contact. Maybe if you make eye contact and you stare, they may then feel depressed and you contributed to it. Maybe all different things like that. So, the far end of that spectrum, which obviously I did work with, because I'm seeing from sort of light cases of chronic OCD to where someone's whole life is consumed by it. Some people wear sunglasses all the time. They're so scared of anyone seeing how they look at somebody, that might make that person depressed, and then they could maybe become suicidal or something. That can become a fear, a very common fear, and so people might wear glasses all the time, avoid all eye contact. Then OCD can actually latch into the eye contact. It used to do this quite a lot for me, where I'd be having a conversation and think, okay, don't lock into that, and it's like, where's your eyes looking? Okay, you're focusing on them. Maybe you're focusing too much, maybe it's too intense, and then feeling sort of trapped, like, should I look there, should I look here, should I look there, should I look like that? And then you feel it's kind of like a sensory motor sensation, but trapped in the OCD cycle there. And that's a very common one, actually. What other ones have we got to cover? I actually talked a little bit about hair today on the Instagram stories in relation to drastic changes. What happens here is people feel that when they are, people often think of the Britney situation with mental health when she shaved her hair off. They think of those scenarios, which do happen in different mental health disorders. But with OCD, what happens is people tend to feel like, what if I've got to make a sudden change now. I've got to make a sudden move now. Okay, they feel like that urgency. Maybe with our OCD, I've got to leave my partner or something like that. So with hair ones, it can feel like, I've got to change my life right now. Maybe I'll cut all my hair really short. Maybe I'll dye my hair a really bright color. Maybe I'll keep dyeing my hair different colors because of the sensation of wanting to change my life, wanting to whatever. Now that can come from various ways. Okay. And then you've got the sort of backdoor spike of it, where Kirsty's done a good video on backdoor spikes, explaining about that, but you've got the backdoor spike of it. You've got all these sort of different contributing factors that come in here. So let's look at that hair one. So then somebody who does change their hair and makes it, let's say, blue or green, for example, they might, just because they want to, might think, oh my God, did the OCD contribute to me making that decision to make that change? Well, no, they just decided to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But they could then become scared. Oh my God, maybe I'm getting worse because I decided to do that. Then maybe what was I thinking when I did that? What was that sensation that I thought of when I did that? And then they can get very much sort of internalized into their thinking of what was contributing to make them make that decision. Because then there's the fear of going crazy, fear of losing control, fear of all those different scenarios that can contribute to those decisions in other ways. But that can be the case. It's very easy for these kind of things to overlap. Okay, so you may have always been a bit concerned with how you're perceived, how you look, and then OCD sort of gets into that and hijacks that. So there's a sort of modern world where everyone's very concerned about their appearance. It's sort of completely over exaggerated. I've got to have people are spending 10 times what they were at that age on clothes, but I don't judge. If people want to do it and enjoy themselves, so what? Let people enjoy themselves. Let people do that. You don't have to put them down for that. But I'm saying we people spend a lot more on this because with social media and so on, everyone has to impress each other, and it's a social status and how many likes and how many followers and what coat you're wearing and what jumper you're wearing and what massive logo, and the logos get more, and then you've got a jumper covered in logos and trousers covered in logos, and that's what happens because it's that constant chasing. And with that, what you've got to think is you've got to think, well, how much am I doing this to get someone's approval? Okay, and that is the main contributor. How much am I doing this to get someone's approval? Why do I need that approval? Why do I need to have that people's approval? Okay, why? We need it for a certain. We need to aesthetic benefits bring benefits to our lives in, say, the job. If we look better going into a job interview, we will probably do better. If we look better, we get different opportunities in life. Things like that happen. Okay, so we're not saying that appearance doesn't make a difference. It does. Orson Welles says only a fool doesn't. Oscar Wilde said only a fool doesn't judge by appearances. So we do judge by appearances, but we don't need the approval. It's not like life and death. Oh, I've got to get this approval, otherwise I can't survive without that internally. But that's what we tend to do. We tend to do that, okay? So we've got to watch that. We don't need the approval like we think we need it. We're not going to die on the spot if we don't get it. We feel like we do, but we don't, okay? We don't die on the spot without that approval. So you've got to think about the things you're purchasing and doing. How much of that is for this approval seeking? How important is that to you? Because in the world that we live in today, especially if you're younger, you're around that all the time. Number of followers. What filter should I look like? Then people scared to go on a date because they've been using a lot of filters, and what if they think I look different, and then wanting to have plastic surgery to look more like the filter. That happens today, and these things happen all the time. And it wasn't in a world where what I lived in. I'm 35, nearly 36, so it's different. But it's in this world we've got to adjust. You know, we can do that and have the fun of it in terms of the social media stuff and have fun with that. But we've got to also rein ourselves in and think, oh, maybe I'm becoming a bit too extreme with that. Maybe that's becoming too much of a problem. Maybe that's making me feel not as great about myself when I'm doing too much of that. And so just getting a balance there. Now, definitely gone off topic here, so let's go back to these questions. Got a very good iPhone holder today, balanced on a COVID mask box. Let's have a look. Does OCD last for your whole life? It can do. In the sense that, yes, OCD, the genetic form, I imagine in the gene that it's there. I imagine it is there for life in terms of gene, but not knowing that you've got it is what we're talking about in relation to recovery, not being able to tell the difference, because you haven't got chronic guilt, chronic anxiety, latched on forever, all of that kind of stuff. However, suffering, some people may suffer on and off a bit more than others, depending on where they are in their perspectives and what they've learnt and so on. A lot of people haven't got access to all the things that we've got here and what we do and all the reading and all the things like that. A lot of people don't know that, so they can stay latched for a long time. It's like anything. It's like saying what percentage of people with certain neurological disorders that spend their whole life not just neurological disorders, but like if any disorders. Some country might have treatment in the form of medicine, another country might not have that medicine. Maybe that medicine is expensive, all different kinds of things. So it depends. But as a rule of thumb, if people do the work and change their perspectives and work on their OCD, usually the suffering comes right down, and usually they get to a point where they can live fine, well enough where it's barely affecting them much. But then to get to a point where they're completely no chronic guilt, chronic anxiety, takes more work. Can everyone get there? Yes, with work. Does everyone do that? No. So that's the sort of answer to that. don't really understand that question there from MTL Shane about meaning through work in recovery. How do I create more meaning? Well, don't become too obsessed with meaning. You know, a good book for it is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It doesn't, you're not, like, look, if I eat a hamburger, I'm not thinking, what meaning am I getting? I'm thinking, I'm enjoying a hamburger. Okay, that's as far as that goes. If I'm doing something for a career or doing something towards a particular task on a sort of longer scale, I'm probably thinking, well, what meaning is that giving? But you're not thinking about meaning on a general day-to-day basis on all acts. You don't have a shower and think, what's the meaning of this? What's meaning? You may do if you're suffering from existential OCD and you're very caught up in that cycle. But usually what's happened is we don't do that. The meaning is, well, having fun, having a hamburger with friends, whatever. That's as far as that tends to go. What do we mean by unconditional self-acceptance? If you check out our YouTube channel and this page and scroll through the post, you'll find lots of stuff about what is unconditional self-acceptance. Can someone get better without an OCD specialist? It's tricky, very tricky. Could someone get better without any of the resources at all? That all the work that we do in terms of that we cover, and so they said, let's say they read no books and they just went on the basis of, I've got OCD, I'm going to leave OCD there and try not to react to it, right? Success rate on that would be pretty low. For some people it might work, very light OCD. You know, some people have a light OCD, moderate, maybe chronic but quite light. It's not really got a grip. Maybe. In the form that we're talking about, in the mass majority of chronic OCD, no chance. It wouldn't release like that. It won't release like that. So we need to do this work to change that. Having somebody who understands it makes it a lot easier, because there's so much that goes into OCD, so many different things, and so many, it's not rocket science, but there's a lot more to it than people genuinely think. And so for that reason, it's very helpful to have somebody who really understands OCD. So just make sure whoever you work with really understands OCD, because OCD slips into the gaps of uncertainty. It gets into different forms and themes. And if someone doesn't really understand that, it's very tricky, and it tends to be resistant, and they tend to get stuck. And, you know, it's a very testing journey for the sort of average therapist or life coach in terms of helping someone with any anxiety disorders, because for sometimes somebody could just come in and say, hey, just go running, do a bit of that. For very light anxiety, that might be all they need. Something like OCD that's really bloody robust, it's not going to do that. It might help, but it certainly cuts through most things like a hot knife through butter. It does tend to do that. Even Australia, yes, I work with a lot of people in Australia. I have to get up earlier to do those calls. But yeah, Australia's improving. They're doing better with OCD, but it's obviously got a long way to go. But definitely improving. Look, on the positive side, the whole world is improving in terms of OCD. We wouldn't have got this knowledge. It's so much in the past, by no means, but it's still so much in the dark by just how much I have to sort of push forward with awareness all the time towards unconditional self and life acceptance. And that's only one part of it, talking about how all the different things, how the whole of OCD sort of mechanism works. There's more all the time, but in the past people didn't even know about exposures. People didn't even know anything about acceptance. I posted a bit today about anxiety sensitivity from an article on Wikipedia that was talking about fear of fear. This is only in the past couple of decades. I mean, the amount that we've moved from sort of 1970 to 2020 is drastic. Can you imagine what it would have been like in 1520? Doesn't even bear thinking about. I have to enter a room with my right foot and leave with my left. Well, you don't have to. That's the key. You don't have to. You've got a sensation that you feel you do, but you don't have to. That can be an OCD thing, yes. It can just be a general, when we think of OCD in the sort of mistaken term of just wanting something to feel just right in sort of tidiness, it can feel like that. But if it's causing you a major problem, then it's something to discuss and to work on. But it's usually just it's just a fear of a sensation or rejection of a sensation. And doing it with the wrong foot or whatever, so you feel that sensation, not how you want to feel it. And then you will get used to that. Please try to speak in an Indian accent. I definitely don't think that's the approach I'm going to be doing for helping people with OCD in India. We'll be using translators that will be doing, that will be translating all the. Look, a lot of with social media and obviously being in English, you reach a large amount of people that speak English. But there is a huge number of people that don't speak English very well or don't speak English. And even if they speak English to a reasonable level, when it comes to OCD, I think that what you've got to think about is you need to be able to convey exactly what you're thinking. Not specifically. People get obsessed about that. Did I say it exactly right? Did I say it 100% correct? They become obsessed with that. You don't need to have it absolutely correct how you want for them to understand. That was one of my fears. What if they don't get it? What if they don't understand? No. You've just got to be able to convey it enough that they understand in general. But if you can't speak English well enough, that's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. So yeah, in answer to that question, we won't be doing any accents. Stop trying to work out the purpose of life. Mary 13. Look, you're going to go. These OCD. What a lot of people don't realise is OCD moves from one thing to the next, and they overlap. Okay, they really, really overlap, and you have to be aware of that because it's a key point. Existential is the fear of being, usually, not in all ways it operates, fear of being disconnected, fear of not being able to connect with loved ones, fear of not being connected to your environment which you felt you trusted and felt safe all your life with that. You feel that suddenly shifted or changed, or you've had an awareness at a certain time of age that you never saw before. Why if I never saw this? How did I never see this? And then it feels like it's all changed. Now, depersonalization can come in there. Oh, I feel disconnected, because it creates, OCD is a master at mimicking, so it creates that sensation of being disconnected. You've got suicide OCD in there potentially. Oh, what if I can't handle it and I can never get back, and then I get so depressed I end my own life? All variations of the same thing. They all overlap. Our OCD, what if I'm gay? That means I won't be in my relationship. What if I can't connect? Therefore, then we can't have a relationship. What if I get depressed and then I can't connect, and then the relationship's over? What if I don't know my sexual identity? Then I can't have a relationship, so I'm living life as a fraud, as a fake, and da 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 da. So it all goes in that sort of various overlapping, one theme comes in, then another branches off that, then another and another and another. So you've got this whole sort of web of things, which is always trying to do that, trying to lock in there. Okay. Meds are helpful if accompanied by awareness and external work. Absolutely. Meds are very helpful, and I've done videos talking about that on the YouTube channel. Not for everyone, not everyone's cup of tea. They're completely fine. But often it will help take the edge off a lot, and so that's really helpful for a lot of people that are suffering with anxiety, because why not take the edge off if you're suffering? And you can, as long as the side effects aren't too bothersome. Some people, they weigh it up and they say, okay, well, maybe the sexual libido side effect with that particular med or particular human's experience of it is not worth taking the meds. Completely understandable too. But we have to be open to different things and trial of different things, because OCD is a kind of resilient thing, so you're trying to hit it from multiple angles. If you've got it there, you need a sort of few-pronged approach to do it. You've got to think, right, well, exercise, I've got changing my beliefs and perspective, I've got potentially meds, I've got not overworking, I've got socializing, all these different things. Made more difficult in the COVID scenario because some of the things have been taken away. So we felt more in our head, more trapped in between the four walls and focused inwards. And so that whole thing has happened as well. So we've got a whole mixture of things that are going on there. So we need to really target this thing from multiple angles so that we're hitting it from various ways. That's the way I always think with everything in life. It's trial, it's persistence, hard work. It's about really working hard to do what you're trying to achieve. They're not overworking with OCD, but a balanced approach. But trying things from different angles. The same as if you are trying to be an athlete. You're going to do a mixture of strength resistance training, cardiovascular. You're going to play your sport. You're going to do exercises in the sport. You're going to maybe you're going to watch the sport. You're going to watch other athletes that have done it. You've got various things that come into you perfecting the craft you're in. And you've got to change that as you go along. And that's the same with OCD. You've got to look and think, right, okay, so for some people, meditation works great. Okay, that's great. With sensory motor OCD, it tends to not be great. But some people will play around and think, okay, let's try that. I've tried hundreds of things in my journey. That's what's brought me to this point here. But what we do know is that the main contributing factor in all anxiety disorders is our belief system, what we're scared of, what we think is awful is about to happen, how terrifying something's going to be. And that is the main underlying factor. So that's what we're zooming on and we're focused on changing, because that's the main thing underneath it. But the other things really help with it. When you're mindful, you're learning to be more at peace with being in the moment. You're learning to be more sort of observant of just being here and slowing things down. So that sort of nicely sinks into the rational thinking. These things accompany each other, they complement each other in a nice way. So we want to do a mixture of things so that we've got a broader focus that's helping with what we're trying to achieve. Now, let's have a look here. I'm not going to be able to answer every question because there's quite a few on here today, as there always are. I struggle with seeing my relationship OCD fears as irrational because they have manifested because of being hurt in the first place. This is the mistake that people make. It doesn't matter what has happened in life, whatever, whether I have cancer, whether I'm facing 10 years in jail, whether I am cheated on my girlfriend with 10 different women in the last week. That is irrelevant to the chronic anxiety cycle. These are not nice things. These are things we would rather not happen, but it's not the chronic anxiety. It's always irrational. Let me show you why. Let's think of the cancer. We know that people live with cancer and can be at peace with it. They can really strongly dislike it and want rid of it, but they're at peace with it. So they're not irrationally anxious. Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. This is so terrible. I mean, we are all going to die. We're never going to live forever. So some people just know when, and it's a shorter lifespan. So, okay, so they can learn to see that more rationally and get a calmer response. If I cheated 10 different girls in the last week and I had a girlfriend, as an example, I was made up there, it wouldn't be ideal because humans tend to believe in, and I'm giving a very short answer to these things, there's a much bigger range of what comes into forming these beliefs. If that was the case, well, first of all, it wouldn't be great because cheating tends to push our relationships away and doesn't help with the values that we have in the relationships. There's nowhere that says you can't cheat, and maybe future civilizations will look back on the lot do now and say, well, long-term relationships with one person brings a lot of hindrances. We don't have the time to do the things we want to do often. And humans do like to have sex with other humans, and they probably want to have more sex, but they get locked into these relationships because we invented this concept of that. Right. Now, that's what could be said. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with either. People can stay single, people can get married, people can swing, people can have different relationships, all different things. Whichever works for them and helps each other and doesn't hurt another person. But then with OCD, it will go, what if it does hurt another person? Well, even if it did hurt somebody, it wouldn't be ideal, okay? It wouldn't be ideal. Somebody is a bit hurt, they're sad. They haven't died. Their life does continue. Then as you'll go, what if they do die? And so we can go into all those sections. But what I'm trying to show here is that under any circumstance, things aren't as scary as we think. Even if you cheated, there's no universal law that says no cheating. We invented the word cheating. We invented marriage. Not in the animal kingdom doesn't live by these rules. Maybe some animals do. Well, they do. Some animals are in long relationships for 30 years, but not in a sort of bonded relationship in an animal church, but in terms of how they stay with just one partner. So you can't say these things. You can't say. You have to look at where we made things up and where is there a universal law. Is there a universal law that says you can't have sex with another human being when you're with one human being? No. We invented that law. So is it terrible if we do? No, it's not ideal. It's not helpful to our relationships, but it's not the end of the world. Okay? The world continues and carries on. So we can pick away at these things bit by bit by bit. Now, we can still strongly hold them. I really want to be in a relationship. I really want to have the values of a relationship, and I don't want to hurt the person that I'm with, all these kinds of things. That is fine. And we're saying that for all of these things, great reason and belief for all of these things. But we've got to be realistic. We've got to be careful that we don't get ourselves locked up. I'm having to give a strong argument why, to show the rational reasons why it's not the end of the world if you cheat. First of all, we might hear that and think, oh God, that's very different to what I think about relationships and so on. It's not what I personally believe. I'm saying in terms of rationally what I think. Rationally, what I think and what I can see as scientific fact is there's nowhere written that you have to be in a relationship. There's nowhere written that you can't have multiple sexual partners. If you looked at the evidence for a lot of that, if humans enjoy having sex, why can't they have more sex? Now that'd be a hard argument to argue against. So you've got to start looking at these things more rationally, picking these things apart. OCD is going to look into your past and look for every single thing. It's going to go, but what if you cheated? What if you flirted? What if you made the move when you were with them? What if your relationship had an overlap and you were already going out with that guy, but then you went with this one? Whatever. It's going to do all of that, See every variation of this. A large part of my job is, on an average day, I'm probably spending 20% of the day working with relationship OCD. And it's showing people that we strongly would like to have a relationship, we'd like to have a bond with somebody. But if the bond broke down, or even if we did something that wasn't right by our society's standards, it wouldn't be the end of the world. We would strongly like to not do that, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if it happened. And we know it isn't because people do cheat. It's very common. It happens. We invented the word cheat as well. That's a concept in itself, a man-made concept, and it's got its own reasons for why it's called cheat and so on. It's good to look at these things. It's good to break these things down. It means we still have a relationship and we still I want to have a relationship and I want to have a family because that's the way I want to go in life and that's very helpful. Great, very healthy, very helpful. But what we're saying is that the downside isn't as scary as we think. That doesn't mean we want to do it. You can watch the video on acceptance isn't agreement on our YouTube channel. It means that even if it were to occur, it wouldn't be as scary as we think, and there's nothing set in stone that it's awful, unbearable. It's not some universal law like the world's going to collapse if it happens. Although it feels like that. Why? Because in our society, we like to keep these bonds together because it's how all our society functions. Same as many areas of society which harm OCD, for example, will try and get into. There's going to be a lot of questions on here today, I can see. I'm going to try and cover as many as I can. Let's have a look. What do you think about ACT for OCD treatment? ACT is very good for helping with OCD, and lots of the principles from ACT I'm using every day, and is very important in terms of helping people with OCD. A lot of what we're doing are principles, are things from mindfulness, from ACT, from REBT, from philosophy, all brought together in terms of how we approach helping people with OCD. So yeah, I think a lot of principles good. Do I think ACT alone will lead to recovery? No, I don't, because I can't see without unconditional self and life acceptance, really seeing that and a sort of deeper understanding of sort of philosophy and rational thinking, and seeing that our beliefs are what make the world seem the way it is, and that we that's what does that. And nothing is awful or unbearable. We bring that and reduce that down when we change our perspectives. Without that element, I can't see, and I haven't seen for a long time, and I've been discussing and debating this for years. I can't see how that's doable. Scientifically, I can't see how it's possible to do that. I think you can create an amount of distance, but otherwise the OCD will just be hammering in, no, you've got to be guilty forever. No, if you've done that, you're screwed forever. No, if you've done that, you're ousted by society, and so on. Good to see you on here, Stephanie Roan Girl. Been a while. I'm glad to see you on here. Your stories over in the past have been very helpful to people with OCD, especially your banana shame attacking exercise, the old Albert Ellis walking a banana exercise. And yeah, good to have you on here and helping in the talking in the comments about your journey, all these kinds of things. Very helpful to people with OCD. So many people have OCD. As I always say to people with the community that we ran in the Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups, all the little tips and little advice from your own journeys makes a world of difference to somebody else with OCD. It makes a huge, huge difference. And you don't think it straight away. You think, oh, they don't want to hear this from me, or that's not that helpful, whatever. And then somebody's like, that changed my life. That saved my life. I see that all the time. I see people saying, oh my God, that post in the WhatsApp group or that post in the Facebook group, that saved my life. If I hadn't heard that, I just thought there was no hope or something. So those points, all those little things, they help so much. The way to change OCD is through this community of helping each other, not reassuring each other, but teaching each other how to change and change perspectives on things through the things that we've learned to change ourselves. In relation to disputing irrational beliefs, do it in little doses, not more than 15-20 minutes every other day or something, but don't go over the top. You're not trying to fight it off, okay? So you're not trying to get rid of the OCD, but I've got to dispute and get rid of it. It's not that. The disputing irrational beliefs is done little by little to see that where they're irrational, where they're not real, where it's made up. We've learned to believe this made up version, and the rational is where it's makes sense, scientific-based, evidence-based answer. So we can see that. This isn't being logical, this isn't trying to rationalize all the thoughts where we get confused. Well, if I had sex with that person and they had HIV, then I couldn't get it because the odds of that. No, that's trying to work it all out. So that's not what we're doing. We're learning to accept the worst case scenario, learning to be more rational, learning to be less scared by seeing things as they are, instead of the sort of Disney-like fairy tale we tell ourselves about these things, like the world's going to end if I said something bad to someone, or the world's going to end if I cheated on my partner, or whatever. Just scrolling through and having a look at a few of these. The recovery journey, how long does it take? It's a bit like a piece of string question. How long is a piece of string? You can have a look at that on the YouTube channel. There's a few videos talking all about the recovery journey, the length and what's involved, the hurdles and so on. There's a playlist on that, the hurdles of OCD recovery. So check that out. OCD is going to attack during an important occasion because you are saying to OCD, do not go there. It's like holding a red flag behind your back with a bull and saying, don't go anywhere near this red flag. It's going to laser focus on that red flag, okay? And that is what you're doing here. I don't want that holiday ruined. I don't want my exams ruined. I don't want that day ruined with my girlfriend, whatever. It's going to turn up the heat. You need to bring it for the ride. It's like if you've got a screaming toddler, you're going to have to sort of bring them along. You can't sort of scream back. It's going to erupt. So you've got to bring it along. And you've got to learn to sort of calmly bring it with you. That's key. Because OCD is always wanting to raise its voice. It's wanting to not. It doesn't like not being invited to the party. It's got to be invited. Okay? If you invite it and you bring it for the ride, our term that we often use, it calms it down. Those questions where people say I was diagnosed with a theme. A theme is not a diagnosis. Look, I could think of glasses and something about OCD with glasses. I haven't got glasses OCD. My diagnosis is not glasses OCD. It's OCD, and I'm having a thought about glasses. Religious OCD we will be covering in a lot more detail on the channel. Something that I haven't covered in a huge amount, but people are asking me all the time, Rob, you've got to cover religious OCD, so I'm going to cover it a lot more. It really needs covering, and there's so much to cover, and it was one of probably the most popular themes in the past. I mean, POCD wouldn't have been so popular in the medieval times, whereas fear of going to hell and things that could blasphemy, all these kinds of things, hugely popular. But as they are in countries where it's very religious. I work with a lot of people in Saudi Arabia that have a very strong religious OCD, fear of religion, fear of being gay, these ones, as well as in parts of America, which are very religious. The same. I see all of those, and various other parts of the world where the population is very religious. So I will be covering that in detail. The truth. Yeah, that question. There was people saying OCD is you're never gonna you can never get better. It's a load of nonsense. Okay, that's the bottom line. It is a load of nonsense. You can't. There's no treatment resistance. I've never seen treatment resistance OCD in my life. Okay, I've never seen it. I've worked with people. Some of the sort of cases of OCD that if I was to tell the story, people would find it quite scary of how someone's life had got into that position. And those cases weren't treatment resistant. They'd had it a very long time because of the reasons and the factors that had allowed that cycle to operate like that. But they weren't treatment resistant. If you weren't scared of something, there is no OCD cycle. If you're not scared of something, there is no OCD cycle. That is the key. So once you learn to be less scared, you don't suffer. But initially, when you don't have these tools, of course you suffer, and it's easy in that moment because the emotions and the locked-on feelings that we're feeling at that time, we think, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck like this forever. I'm never going to get better. Surgery is not the way to go with OCD. People come in a lot. I see it in South America a lot, Colombia, Brazil. People come in, have had surgery, thinking it was going to be fix it as a last resort. They didn't get better. I see it a lot all over the world. But there was a guy who came into me maybe 2 years ago from Mexico. He'd had surgery, got no relief, felt suicidal and worse than ever because then he thought that there was no hope for him. His life was ruined. He's now living, functioning very well. Doesn't suffer that much at all. He's posted his story on our page. I see that all the time. I had another guy in last week, again, had just had surgery, and going through his fears, he can instantly see straight away what's stuck, and he's been following me for a while, and can see the difference in what he has to do and why he wouldn't get better. So surgery, you want to really forget it. I can't think of a single case I've ever seen where I'd say, surgery is an option. Never seen it. I've never seen a case where I'd say surgery is an option. Because to present with that case, there'd have to be in a way that I would think, right, no tools work for them, no medication works for them, surgery is only the option. Well, I never see a case where that's the case. I've never seen that. So I can't think of a case for OCD where surgery warrants even considering for a second. But I can see how people with, I can see very much how people with anxiety disorders, specifically OCD, get into positions where they do think that surgery is an option because of the intensity of the suffering that they feel in that time, and they can't see a way out of it, that they would consider surgery, because obviously being in a system where we tend to see medicine as one resort, and then surgery as a sort of last resort that does it. Same with back pain. You see so many people having surgery for back pain when they actually don't need the surgery for back pain. Is because they really dislike the pain that they're experiencing. Obviously pain, same as anxiety, it goes up and down based on perspectives too, but in a lot of cases they haven't done a lot of physio, they haven't done a lot of exercise, haven't done all different things to help that, and they will often opt for the surgery because they think that's the way to do it, and it often isn't. Often it is, and people have back surgeries and make incredible improvements. So it's a mixture of weighing these things up, but with something like OCD, the anxiety disorder, definitely surgery is not an option to really consider. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through all these comments. I'm going to organise for one of the moderators to read these comments to me in one of the next Instagram lives with the earphones, so they can read out all the different questions, so we can cover them quicker and save me to go through them. So we will do that, so I can come on here and do longer Instagram lives and reach a lot more questions, because obviously a lot of questions do come in, and I want to be able to do those. And we'll do more Instagram lives as well, so that can help cover those. False memory OCD, any suggestions? We've got a lot of videos on false memory OCD. That was one of the ones that really got me the longest. Real event, false memory harm OCD. That was the one that held and latched for me the longest. And I spent years stuck in that one. So there's quite a lot of videos on that. Both myself and Oliver cover that on the YouTube channel. So check those out on real event, false memory OCD. Health hackers, yes. Weddings, having a baby, holidays, buying a house, any life changes, not just positive life changes, negative life changes too. Maybe getting a disease, maybe a loved one dying. All these things factor and change. They can hit our belief system, and then suddenly there's a change, more anxiety, whatever. Or we want to be happy and we want to be present and we want to enjoy something. We're saying to OCD, you can go away. And OCD doesn't like that, as we were just saying about bringing it for the ride. Okay, guys, I am going to be back on another Instagram live in the next few days, I think, to cover a lot more of your questions. In the meantime, if you want any of your questions covered, just go over to the Facebook group. And in the Facebook group, you can ask these questions. There's a lot of moderators in there. We've got about 10 moderators in there, as opposed to most sort of groups and forums. Probably have about 3 or 4 that are very part-time. We have 10 moderators who are really actively in there. So we try and get most of these things covered. I will be back on here probably, I'll try and be back on here in the next 2-3 days doing more Q&A and doing some videos on different subjects that you want to see covered. I'd like to cover sleep a lot more, because sleep is one of those ones so many people come in with, and with not knowing what to do with sleep. And sleep insomnia can really, when I say sleep, I'm talking about just problems with sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to go to sleep, waking up too early, nightmares constantly, palpitations during the night, all these things that we don't like because they feel uncomfortable, and how getting under our anxiety and how to approach them will help us get better. So I'll be covering all of that. Guys, great to see you all on here. I will see you on the next Instagram Live. Take it easy, guys. Bye.